This is the Broodcast on Poets at War, Inkling-style Discord chat, last Friday of every month. And now, the Broodcast.
Hola, senor.
Hello.
How are you?
I am doing well. How are you, Josh?
Not bad at all, man. I'm excited to be with everybody and be in our little pub.
Yeah.
I wish I had a drink, a libation this evening. I don't have the money for it. But yeah, that would be nice. How about you? What's going on?
Oh, not much. I am trying to figure out where I'm going to actually set up for tonight.
Gotcha.
Because I've got basically three options. Number one, the attic, but it is currently 100 degrees outside.
That's true, yeah.
And so I don't think that being in a 120 degree attic is going to be great.
Probably not for you or your device.
Yeah, exactly. Second option is my garage, which is slightly better.
Slightly better.
Not by much, but slightly better. It might only be 90 degrees. Mm-hmm. And then the third is the bathroom. But the problem with that is, number one, it's bathroom, and number two, we have many people in my house, and sometimes we need both bathrooms in operation.
Yeah, so what's up with your little book room office? What's going on right now?
That is at my grandparents' house, and I am at Mom and Dad's house right now.
Gotcha, okay.
Because Nana and Papa are going to be going up to Kansas, and so I'm hanging out here.
Too bad you don't have, like, a cave. Cave would be good.
Yeah.
Maybe not for internet, but cave.
I technically can just go outside.
Yeah?
That might... I think I'm going to do that, at least at the beginning.
You're going to have airflow at least, you know?
Yeah. I think that that's what I'm going to do.
Find some shade if it's still sunny.
Yeah, it's still sunny out here.
It's just starting to get darker here. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. So...
Yeah.
Oh,
now,
boy.
Whether or not I will have internet out there is a completely different question.
Yep.
Okay. Wi-Fi does not like working.
Well, we will find out one way or another. Okay. I broke out my comfy headphones again tonight. I wanted something comfy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm showing 3 bars of Wi-Fi.
Well,
should
there
be
you
good.
Go. There you go. At least for audio, right?
Yeah, I might just stick with my iPad for now.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
So what have you been up to?
Oh, lots and lots. Hello, other Alex. Good to have you here. Like you saw in the Brood, schooling people on A Little Mermaid.
Nice.
I've been up to that. I've been up to just regular work stuff. I think you guys saw the church sign is finally working, so that's awesome.
Awesome.
I just started reading this shelf of books because a lot of them, well, the whole shelf, the whole bookshelf, because it's just not one of my favorite things to do, but I'm finally over the fact that I just need to read aloud and deal with it that way. But I'm going through the very top left, right there. That book is classic Irish stories compiled by somebody. Most of them are like 1800s stories, so they're not like ancient, Irish stories. They're more like potato famine stories.
Yeah.
But they're not bad. There's some stuff in there that's enjoyable. Some of it I'm like, this is dull, but at least it tastes Irish.
Yeah.
So, but I'm planning on reading through this whole shelf slowly.
Cool.
Yeah.
What are the multicolored books? The blue, red.
Yeah, those
yellow,
are the ones
green.
that are on the background of my website. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. Those are,
what are they?
Collier's Junior Classics. They're from the 50s or 60s.
I think my mom just got those as well.
Probably. Yeah,
we got like a really good deal on.
They're fairly common even to this day because they were made and bound so nicely. But they're just lot of different stuff. Let me just grab one or two just to give you an idea. Hold on.
Yeah. What have you been up to, Alex?
So this is I'm sacrificing a lot to be here right now. Actually, something I just
So they were meant to kind of be a classic literature for kids sort of thing. The first one is entitled ABC Go, and then the last one that I grabbed is called Gifts from the Past. They have these nice gilded spines with these little characters on them and everything. And so they were compiled by some publisher. I can look into it here. Let's see. This particular printing was published 1962 by Crowell Collier Publishing Company. And some of the stuff that's in it. In this one, it's like Ring a Ring, O Roses, Georgie Porgy, Puddin' and Pie, Hey Diddle Diddle, Old Mother Hubbard, Ba Ba Black Sheep, all those kind of nursery rhyme type stuff. Yeah. And then here's one a couple issues later. This one's called Just Around the Corner. Has a little elephant on it. And this one, let's see here. Ajax the Golden Dog by Mary Elwyn Patchett. India by some people I can't pronounce. Africa, Sweden, Mexico, Canada. So this is giving you these are from different places, like different titles. Gift of the Forest, Damassi's Party, The Saucepan Journey, Thomas's Lost, Anne's Confession, Eskimo Boy, a bunch of other just like stories from around the world kind of thing. Yeah. And then Gifts from the Past, this is the last one in the set, I believe, unless I have an incomplete set, which is thoroughly possible. But I've just never looked into it. The Glorious Whitewasher by Mark Twain, Rip Van Winkle by Washington Irving, The Trial of Rebecca by Sir Walter Scott, The Last of the Mohicans by James Fenimore Cooper, Swiss Family Robinson by Johann Weiss, Gulliver's Voyage to Lilliput, Don Quixote, Pride and Prejudice. So
wow.
Yeah. I don't know if those are abridged versions or not, but either way.
I would assume that those are abridged.
I would think so too. Yeah, but or excerpts from, or introductions to, or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, it's just like stuff that people thought kids should enjoy and read, and they go from really young to much older. So they're just beautiful books physically.
They are.
So yeah, I've definitely read some parts of them growing up because they were always on the shelves, but I never sat and went through them completely or anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, other Alex, what did you think of my Little Mermaid stuff?
I've never thought about it that way. I mean, it has been years since I've actually read the original Little Mermaid, but I never thought about it that way.
Most people totally miss the talk with the grandmotherly character. I forget if she's like a godmother or grandmother.
Yeah, I don't actually remember that part either.
Well, there's a lot of abridged versions too, that people don't end up getting that part and don't have her prime motivation, which is actually to have an immortal soul and go to heaven. But he was wacky, he was weird. His autobiography is amazing. And the way he talks about Jesus and God providing for him in rough situations, I don't know how you could possibly doubt the man's salvation, regardless of his weird theology, which really isn't all that weird given all the other stuff going on at the time. He just couldn't see how God could be so great and good and choose some people over other people, because Calvinism was more prevalent then, right? So he was saying, essentially, Jesus is going to circumvent everything after all is said and done, and everyone will be washed and saved, whether by hell or something else, which is a fascinating idea, even though it's obviously against the scripture, you know what I'm saying? But it's fascinating. Regardless, George MacDonald kind of fell into that camp, although he was a little bit more nuanced on a few things, and I think he was much more theologically literate than Hans Christian Andersen. So
I know that some people will accuse Lewis of being kind of a universalist in a like neo-McDonaldian vein, because his argument, if I'm remembering correctly, was basically once you have stripped all of the godness out of a human and sent them to hell, they're no longer human.
Right.
They're still a being that exists. They're a created being, but they aren't human anymore. And so that's kind of annihilationist, but yeah.
More or less. But the other half of the situation with him is people will point to always forget the character's name. He's only in it for a little while at the very end of the last battle. You know what I'm talking about.
Yep. Yeah.
The Calormene, who served Tash all his life and wanted to look upon Tash. Which is a fascinating passage. I think it is. I think it rhetorically misses the mark of what he was going for, ultimately. But I think that it was overall an interesting addition to show that the Calormenes could be saved too, which I think was kind of the point he was getting at. And that there was a nobility to them that was not a Narnian nobility, you know?
Yes.
So how different cultures, even if they're pagan, can have a certain amount of humanity and nobility and the image of God in them, and they normally do. So Emeth, that's his name. Emeth. Yeah. A lot of people hate Emeth.
Yeah. Have you read Joe Rigney's Live Like a Narnian or Doug Wilson's What I Learned in Narnia?
I think I have. I don't remember which one. I don't remember how long ago. It's been a long time.
They're both on the Canon app.
Yeah.
If you have that.
I don't. I can't afford anything these days. But go ahead.
But in Live Like a Narnian, Rigney says, I see this as a miss. I see the Emeth thing as a miss for Lewis. I think that he was wrong in what he was trying to portray. But what he was trying to do was sneak Plato into heaven, effectively.
Right.
And I found that to be really interesting.
Yes. I think his Christian Platonism stuff generally to be very compelling. You just can't do it at the expense of I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except by me. And a lot of people claim that's what he was doing with the multiverse, with the Ransom trilogy, with the Wood Between the Worlds, all that other kind of stuff. But that's not at all what he was doing. No. He was pointing out that the archetype is so universal you can literally put it in anything. You know. So yeah, that was that. I love him for his multiverse stuff. I think he doesn't get enough credit for pioneering a lot of that. The modern, regardless of whether they realize it or not, most of the modern ideas in comic books and other things came from C.S. Lewis.
Well,
you know,
we know that at least one comic book artist or comic book writer knows that, because it's Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, that's right.
Gaiman is conscientiously basically just an atheist version of C.S. Lewis.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You still haven't read Stardust, have you?
I have not.
You need to read Stardust when you get a chance. Yeah, I don't think it's expensive. I think it's like just a couple bucks or something on an ebook, or you can grab a physical book. You can find it at garage sales for a couple bucks. You know.
I'll try to get it on audio.
Yeah, get it on
probably
audio.
pull it from the library.
Yeah, it's so good. I like both. Have you seen the movie or no?
I have not.
Okay, the movie is more generally fun. The book is crunchier. There's one thing that and there's a lot more to the book, obviously. But I will say the movie. One minor spoiler: Robert De Niro plays a character who dresses in drag during the movie, so that's fun. But it's like played for laughs mostly. And then the other one is there's another thing given the character's mom, I will not spoil. The main character's mom is so much more tolerable in the books. or not in the books, excuse me, in the movie than in the books. Hello, Brendan, and I don't recognize your avatar. Solarium Traveler.
I think that's Sarah.
That Solarium Traveler is my wife.
Oh, Kira.
Hello, Kira.
All right. Hi. Good to have you guys here. Casey might be joining us tonight. We'll see. She is currently putting the children to bed, so but she may or may not pipe in at some point. So good.
It's a beautiful sky you have over there in Oklahoma.
Thank you. I'm rather partial to it.
I think it's pretty great.
We are in separate rooms because I was still working because we left the house and I was in the middle of trying to make another effect and I wanted to try to finish it before the broadcast. I failed.
Oh well. You'll get back to it at some point.
Bold of you to assume I won't be working on it while you're talking.
This is true. So, I know I'll have something to grab. I had something in mind and now I've forgotten it, and I'm gonna pull from what I'm currently writing probably, which technically I'm going through an old 50 poems worth of my wrestling world to try and bring it up to speed and then begin writing it again. That's what I recently rolled for writing purposes. So that's fun and exciting and very, very niche, but I think it's good enough when people hear it, they like it. Back when I first started trying to tell stories live online, I had just recently met my future sisters-in-law, and they were tuning into my stuff just to be supportive and interested. And I told some of the wrestling stories and some of the other things, and I was just kind of bouncing around between worlds, seeing what stuck. And their favorite was the wrestling story, because it's primarily a romance, the first one. So, yeah. So.
Cool.
Yep. So I'll probably tell.
I can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Zach will not be here.
Okay. Gotcha.
He was planning on showing up and workshopping the sea shanty, but he is his dad tested positive for the virus of unknown origin, and so they are quarantining, and now he's feeling bad too.
I am bat virus. Anyway.
Yeah.
Bat virus. Bat virus. Good stuff. Okay, so Brendan, are you gonna have something to read or check out for us? Share with us?
Probably not.
Okay.
I mean, I have backlog stuff, but I don't.
Can you make a GIF of one of your effects that you created?
I can. Well, I can try.
Okay.
I can kind of. I think I can share my screen and show you what I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
But
that could be cool. Yeah. That's artistic.
Yeah.
Did you get your hair cut recently or no?
I did.
Gotcha.
I did. We're gonna be traveling to. We're gonna be traveling out to South Dakota for Kira's sister's wedding.
Okay.
And I'm trying to make myself look presentable. Operative word being trying. It doesn't always work.
Oh yeah. Yep, I hear you. I know you guys haven't before, but Kirith or other Alex, do you guys have anything that you plan on sharing?
I do this time actually.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
I've been writing a superhero comic, and planning just sharing the general story, hoping I don't go off on ADHD rants in every sort of direction.
Classic.
But,
yes. Gotcha. Okay. How about you, Kirith? Are you just showing your baby, or you got something? We like your baby.
Yeah, I'm just showing off Tristan.
I love Tristan.
He is honestly the greatest thing that you've created. So.
Oh boy. Yeah, the Wilsons seem to be on their way as well as usual. Mm-hmm. Usually just a little bit later. I'm sure Sarah will pop in at some point. Hopefully we can
Sarah said she wouldn't be able to make it.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Celebrating her priest's 25th anniversary
That's
of
right.
ordination,
That's
I think.
right. Yeah. Okay. Or was that just for when I was saying if anyone wants to jump in the chat? The voice chat.
I thought that was for Broodcast. Broodcast. I could be wrong.
Okay. Well, we'll see. And I think there's a possibility Abigail Falonga might join us at some point, but we'll see. She's always kind of a wild card one way or another. So, alrighty then. Let's see. I am currently working also on the possibility, I talked to Casey and she thinks it's a good idea, of attempting through Eventbrite and anywhere else I can do localized stuff like Facebook events and stuff like that to try and see if I can drum up some kind of Lewis E. Tolkien-y local brood stuff. We'll see how it goes. I'm kind of skeptical there's many people like that in this town, but I might be surprised.
Yeah.
And we could even meet at a pub if we wanted to and, see how that goes. But we shall see. Basically, I don't have any real way of doing any kind of concerts right now because my church, the 501c3 thing I've mentioned previously, my house is not my own in my neighbor's yard, basically. And so it's not like I can have a whole bunch of people over to my house. I could do a public park, maybe, but that's a little bit sketchy depending on the situation. Especially when you introduce money. So instead of going for money, I was thinking, relationships, even better. And we'll see if it pans out, but that's the other thing going on for me.
But you got the sign working.
I did get the sign working. You saw that. Mm-hmm.
It's a miracle.
Yeah, it really is.
What did you end up doing?
Several things. One, the IP address had to be configured properly on the PC that we were using. And then secondly, the sign has, you guys know what PoE is? Power over Ethernet?
Yeah.
Okay. Both, basically we have the network switch, okay, that where the router basically, but it's a satellite switch, but it's basically the network switch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that runs to a transmitter. The transmitter goes across the parking lot to the sign. There's a receiver which plugs in via Ethernet to the sign. Inside the sign, there is a physical player that's its own sort of thing, right? It's its own kind of computer. And basically, all the IP stuff had to be configured properly. And then the other thing was the sign has its own PoE inside it. And we were plugging in an external little tiny PoE box, thinking that it needed power from an external PoE source. And it didn't. So we were doubling up on power over Ethernet, and it wasn't working. Obviously. So basically we took the box out of the line and that made it work. So
wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of other steps that we had to do to get to that point. Figuring out the hardware details and stuff and putting the receiver in the right place and putting the transmitter in the right place and all the other good fun stuff, and it was just a pain. But yeah, it was a whole thing for a year and a half. So yeah, I got the sign working. There was something else I was going to say before you mentioned that, and I'm kind of blanking on it now. Oh,
sorry.
I got my store up. Did you guys see that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know those shirts are kind of expensive at the moment, but eventually, we'll be able to bring those down. I just can only drop ship right now. I can't put any money into shirts up front at the moment. So the drop shipping is expensive. So, but if anyone wants a Poets at War shirt, they're available. If anyone wants a Rhyming Little Mermaid ebook, it's available. If anyone wants to join the Ling Lyricanium, that's available. I also have now a second tier of the Ling Laricanium at $30, where every month I'm sending you something physical. So that's another tier on that end of things. So working on building that out, working on building digital product, and working on figuring out whether I'm going to go the dropship route for fulfillment of physical product more professionally, or if I'm going to sort of work on making my own print stuff better. Not so much books, but more CDs, DVDs, that kind of a thing. So
yeah,
figuring out all those little details, it's fun, slowly but surely. I think I know what I'm going to show. I might do both. I think I will do, depending on what people want. I'll see. But I also have work that I've been doing on the Starry Hearth.
Yeah.
Some of you guys know about the Starry Hearth. Some of you might not. But we can get to that when we get to it. It's a long-term, possibly generational project that I am working on. So we shall see. Anyway, I think we've waited for the Wilsons long enough. They will trickle in, and we'll go from there. Abigail, for long as she is, says she is coming, so that'll be cool.
Oh.
She's cutting a dress out, she says. Voice only, so because she's cutting a dress out of fabric, I guess. All right. Anyway, why don't we do first name alphabetical? We'll go with second name. What last name? Who's first? Which Alex? That's that one. Okay. Yeah. Do you mind going first, man?
Yeah. So, I guess with this one, a forewarning, I don't really have a actually like structured story. Or I do have a structured story. It's not going to be like in a story kind of setting, and the only thing left for me to work on, I guess, is dialogue.
Okay.
So I don't have a lot of dialogue in this story yet. That's actually my main struggle with it so far.
So it's a rough outline at this point, basically, right? Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a rough outline of what I'm going to do in there. Yeah, there's small things.
Rough but detailed outline. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So starting off, so the story starts off where it's this kid. He looks about 11-ish years old, and he is out in the middle of Texas in a alleyway in a city in Texas. Not going to specify where really, but city of Texas, and he's just like running around scavenging for stuff, and he's just thinking just like of his past. I guess first off, he's thinking of his past, and he goes to and it skips to a flashback where he's sitting at his parents' grave. And so this is where the readers figure out he's an orphan, and he's sitting there, just mourning for their death. And all of a sudden, just randomly, it's just like feeling of, hey, something's happening. I need to pay attention. Just falls upon him. And then next to him, as soon as he gets that feeling, next to him, a small sonic boom happens, and just this deity-like being appears next to him. And Dawn doesn't know what to say. After a second of being that deity, says, "This power is now yours. This guy," and he points to the grave, "didn't know what to do with it and didn't use it the way I wanted to. So I'm giving it to you now. Do with it as I want you to do." And then he just disappears. No, not another word, just disappears. And then skips back to him scavenging for more stuff, and then more dialogue, inner thoughts of dialogue is happening, and then skips back to another flashback where he's at an orphanage playing with the other kids, and in the middle of them playing, one of the kids he's playing with falls in front of him, and when he steps forward to try to catch them, he focuses too much on that step, and he puts concentration in it, which activates his power of sound control, Which, side note, I'm taking heavy inspiration of his power off of Avatar: Last Airbender.
Okay.
And making it kind of like that. So he has sound manipulation powers in that sense. But he puts too much focus on it and then creates just a sound boom. And which hurts a lot of people around him, hurts the kids' ears and stuff, and knocks everyone down, including himself. And out of guilt and shame, he just runs away. And then he cuts back to him, modern time, still scavenging, and then some more internal plots. But this time instead of being in an alleyway, he's in a little convenience store. And he's, just trying to steal some food, throwing it in a bag, watching out, make sure the cashier doesn't see. And then the guy comes in, in a dark hoodie and stuff, and he starts robbing the cashier, telling him, give him all the money. He doesn't notice the kid. Kid doesn't see, so the kid hides behind one of the aisles and is trying to think of what to do because he wants to help the guy, but at the same time he doesn't want to get involved because then he could get turned into the cops. And so he looking over and he's like, he makes the decision of he has to help. So he thinks about how he could help. He knows that for his power to work, he needs heavy concentration. He has a lot of concentration off of him doing it, like testing it with snaps and just simple claps. He needs a lot of concentration to do something with it because he has to concentrate on making it bigger, concentrate on pushing it forward, and concentrate on making it smaller so that it doesn't hurt the cashier as well. And after a while, he's looking around thinking, like, is there anything else I could use? And he sees a pop gun over his rack full of pop guns. He's like, I could use that. He rolls over, jumps, grabs one, points it at the guy robbing the place, and he notices them down, looks over, and just thinks, oh, it's just a kid with a pop gun. What's that going to do? Then he pulls it back, and boom, a big explosion knocks the thief back, and the cashier is too shocked by all of it to know what's going on. So he's just they're standing there in shock, and as the kid just grabs a few more bags of food and then just runs off the door. And I think I'm ending the first issue there. So
nice, very cool.
I'm glad to see the pop gun.
Yes.
So he's using the pop gun to focus. So hold on.
Still muted.
Yep.
My bad. So he's using the pop gun to focus the air. Is that what I'm kind of getting at? Or
using the pop gun to relieve some of the concentration he has to do. So with the snapping, he has to concentrate on enlarging it, focusing it in front of him, and then making it smaller so it doesn't affect anything else but the thief. But with the pop gun, it already has it going forward, already has the direction, and already has a size. He just needs to focus on making that part of it go how more powerful.
He's using it like a channel.
Yeah,
gotcha.
He's using it to channel the power.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
I need to look at the camera more. I'm looking at you guys.
You're good. Do what you got to do. I got to do that too. It's all good. I have a teleprompter, but I don't have a good screen for it. I've been using an iPad for a while, and I just had stopped using it because it's such a pain to get the software to work properly. But anyway, that's a great start for a hero. I like the general origin. I'm always a fan of guys that end up feeling basically the outcasts that have to come back into society. And realize that they actually have a huge role in society to play, and they can't really run from it, That's classic superhero trope stuff that never gets old to me. Other thoughts, anybody?
I mean, I just got here, so...
Yes, you did. You only heard half, but that's okay. Brendan, you got anything on that?
I really like it. I've given feedback before, so.
Yep. Have you anything, Brendan?
You're on mute, Brendan.
He knows.
Not really. Like, from what I understood, just what I was hearing, you were just describing the origin story. You weren't like actually writing out. Like, that's not how it'd be written out in a story per se.
Right.
No, it's just a lot of dialogue really that needs to fit in, and then just like getting it like actually in a story form.
Because it's gonna be a comic book, right?
Yeah, it's a comic book.
Yeah.
Okay, then the events all work and they all make sense as far as I'm concerned. It's just a question of execution and how is it revealed. Because okay, there's a story. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But just let me real quick. There's a story about an author by the name of Jim Butcher. He wrote the Dresden Files. He also wrote a series.
That's what I was trying to remember.
There's also a series. Hold on.
We can hear you. You're pretty quiet. But yeah, we can hear you, Abigail.
Sorry, go ahead.
But he wrote a series of books, or he wrote at least one book called the Codex Alera, Alera. He wrote it because he got into an argument with someone online, which sounds weird, but the argument was that the guy was saying you had to have a really good idea in order to make a really good book. And Jim was saying, no, the skill of the author is what matters when it comes to writing. And they got into this huge heated argument, and finally Jim said, all right, I'll put my money where my mouth is. Tell me a concept and I will write a book for you. The guy said, Roman legions meets Pokemon. And so the Lost Roman Legions. And so he wrote the Codex Alera, and it became a New York Times bestseller. At least I think it did. I don't know. On Amazon, it's got a 4.6 out of 5-star rating out of 7,255 global ratings. So,
Considering the fact that every single book sold in the Walmart book aisle says New York Times bestseller, I have a hard time believing that doesn't on the title or on the cover.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. But still. So I bring that story up because you've got a good premise. Now it's just execution. And that no pressure or anything.
Yeah. No pressure, but it has to be good.
Yep.
Right, but I'm sure that the way you, like, given this group and given the way we are more than willing to, like, not just throw ideas at each other, but like say, hey, this worked, this didn't. As you go, you will have a great story. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you've got a solid foundation to begin with. So
yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing, I told this concept to someone else, and I told her a boy looking no older than 9, and she had a problem with how young he was. And so I wanted to make him young enough to where he would understand the concept, but not too old to where his father wouldn't have told him about them, because I'm gonna make a whole thing about the deity actually being evil, and he's gonna do what the deity wants, but yet be a good guy at the same time, and have that be like a struggle as he gets more powerful.
One thing I'll mention, this kind of character, just continuing with the tropes. I know it's a tropey thing, but I think that there's a big reason for it. Your sound, your power is noise, essentially, like deafening, explosive noise. He needs to be the quietest character you can possibly imagine.
His personality is very quiet.
He needs to struggle with the fact that the world needs him to be loud. All right, that needs to be an internal struggle throughout this entire thing. Hey, Casey. So Casey's joined us tonight. Yep. So Abigail, if you have something, would be next, because we're doing alphabetical order tonight anyway, from first name. We did Alex with the closer last name to the top to start. Do you have something for us tonight?
Yeah. Hold on. I think I probably need to.
No problem. Take your time.
I'm using new earbuds, and they're not cooperating. So.
I gotcha.
Let me come to the back. Yeah, my My back of the cover blurb still needs some help, so I wouldn't mind reading it to you all and seeing what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Let me find it and get rid of the earbuds. Okay, can you hear me?
I'm sorry, what?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I feel like the Verizon thing. Oh, great, I'm getting an echo. I hate that.
Do you have the sound coming out of your device near your microphone?
I do. Let me see if it...
Usually headphones are the best solution for that. So.
Oh, my Lord.
I know.
Yep. Okay, well, as long as you can hear me with them.
Yes.
All right, so I have... All right, how's this?
That's pretty good.
Okay, cool. All right, so I have my synopses. Let's see what you think of this. All right, this is for my Little Mermaid retelling. When a shipwreck and the mysterious golden light that marks it signal that the legends of his people are founded in truth, Ranulph, a pirate with a past he'd rather forget, is given a mission: find the ancient treasure of a kingdom long lost to the waves and earn a chance at redemption. The treasure may give his people the weapon they need in a looming war, and earn Ranulph incalculable wealth. Let's not forget about that. But the quest is high, since he must start his search among hostile merfolk, and the only way to do that is by making a bargain with a powerful sea witch. Lily of the Valley is a human princess trapped in mermaid form and locked in a ruinous tower underwater. She suspects the enchantress who cursed her of planning something worse, but there's nothing she can do to escape or fight back, until a pirate dives into her tower searching for lost treasure and for information. Before Ranulph can find a way to free Lily, and before Lily can find a way to get Ranulph the clue he needs, and before the connection between them can form into something deeper, the Sea Witch claims her vengeance. Separated and cursed, Ranulph and Lily must navigate a brutal underwater realm among clashing tribes of merfolk, fearsome sea beasts, macabre magic, and a whirlpool of time itself to find their way back to each other and a means of somehow gaining freedom. The treasure of ancient legend is their only hope, but it might not be what it seems. A flipped retelling of The Little Mermaid combined with an underwater reimagining of Rapunzel set in an epic an epic world of oceanic beauty and peril.
All right. Alrighty. Thoughts? Anybody first off?
It makes me want to read the book.
Good.
Well, that's
good. I think the thing that caught me the most was money. Let's not forget about that. Whatever that line is. Can you reread that one?
Yeah, I think I need to get rid of that part.
You think you need to get rid of that part?
I was thinking that the treasure may give his people the weapon they need in the looming war, and earn Ranulph incalculable wealth. Let's not forget about that.
Yeah, the phrasing is off, but I think the sort of shiny firefly kind of nature of it gives you a hint into the tone. Of course, I haven't read it, so I don't know for sure. But knowing you, I'm pretty sure that there's going to be some of that, wink and a smile kind of thing going on. And so, like, to me, like that was one of the things that, like, I don't think the wording is right. I think there's another way to word that, but I think that, like, there's a thing that where you can go epic, sweeping, romance, but like throwing in that little chunk of humor gave it all the more personality that made me go like, yes, please, I want all of this, you know?
Okay. Well, that's good to know, because that sentence is actually I agonized over this thing for like a whole day, and it came out better than I expected, but some of the wording is still odd.
Yes. And that's actually a problem I run into a lot myself because of the auditory stuff that I have going on in my brain. It's like, I can say it, I can say it and sell you, but I have run-on sentences like Paul does. You know what I mean? Like, where it's just like, yeah, no, I don't understand this. So
They're like a sentence.
right. So sentence fragments and run-on sentences. It's the best. But yeah, I think massaging words is good, but I think the overall really hits well, especially with that one line gives you the and some humor sprinkled in. I think there needs to be a and humor sprinkled in kind of line, and not so like humor like hilarious knee slapper, but like that tongue-in-cheek, real piratey kind of a thing, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I definitely that character has that kind of edge to him. So yeah, okay.
Anyone else?
I actually really like that line. Like Joshua said, it could be probably tweaked a little bit to make it better, but I like that addition. You know, it's got the Firefly thing, got the Flynn Rider thing. You know, guys, I want a castle.
Yeah, the rogue thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So keep the rogue thing. Probably rework that sentence.
All right.
Is that helpful? Does that work for you?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Any other thought?
Anybody else? If you have any questions for us on specifics, you can ask them. Like, it's not just, whatever we think.
Yeah, true. Okay. All right. Let's see. There were a couple of things that other people had problems with. Like, let me see. This is one paragraph. Before Ranulph can find a way to free Lily, and before Lily can find a way to get Ranulph the clue he needs, and before the connection between them can form into something deeper, the Sea Witch claims her vengeance.
You could trim that down to before all can be set right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I like the how it sets up some of the conflict. But
Sure. Yeah, and I agree, but I think you did a pretty good job setting up this whole world is screwed up from top to bottom, throughout the rest of it, we may not know specifically how things need to be set right, but the fact that there's a human trapped in a mermaid's body and there's this pirate guy, with it, like all that stuff that I heard, like, I'm like, yeah, okay, this world is screwed up and it's going to need a lot of healing. So I think you have enough conflict there I like how it builds, but like it feels more like a movie trailer and less like a book blurb.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I mean, movie trailers are good too.
Movie trailers are great, but when you don't hear it, when you don't see it, when you're just reading the text, it can be like, in a world, and it just feels really cliche,
Yeah.
I got TK with the voice there.
Yeah, that was a great impression.
I now actually want a parody movie that starts with that line in the trailer. In a world full of cliches.
Full of cliches. Yeah.
There were a couple of trailers like that for the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie.
Yes.
Way back when, that were hilarious.
I wish that
He sounds like he's been smoking cigars since he was 6 years old.
Yes, I remember that. They kind of reminded me of like the Stitch trailers, and I wish they would have had a narrator kind of situation. I think they did once or twice have the normal, like, Disney coming soon to Disney DVD, whatever, like, you know who I'm talking about. I can't do him nearly as well. But I think they did have him in one or two of the Stitch trailers, but the Stitch trailers are just the best. Lilo and Stitch trailers, they were absolutely hilarious.
Was it Lilo and Stitch or Stitch the movie?
Lilo and Stitch.
Really?
Yeah. Do you not know about these?
No, I don't.
You need to look them up.
I remember the Stitch the movie trailers where he crashes like the various Disney princess
that
movies.
Happened. That was Lilo and Stitch, bro. That wasn't Stitch the movie. They may have redone some. I don't know for sure. But Lilo and Stitch, the original, like that was their introduction to Stitch, of Stitch to the audiences. That was how they introduced Stitch as the next Disney character. So yeah, those are hilarious. I think Beauty. I think was it Beauty and the Beast. She said, "I'll be in my trailer."
It was in my room, and it was.
Yeah. Which one was it? It was Beauty.
It was
Belle.
It was Beauty and the Beast, and Belle gets up and she says, "I'll be in my room."
Yeah. Okay.
Like she's like had enough of all these shenanigans.
Yeah. It's so good. Anyway, okay. Well, regular Alex, not other Alex. You have the floor next. Do you have something that you're sharing this time? I forget if you did or not.
I have one thing that I can share. It's not. It is a backstory for a RPG character, or for my primary RPG character.
Yeah, for the Broodcast.
No, not for the Broodcast.
Not for
this
Broodcast.
Is for my own
okay.
world.
Gotcha. Okay.
This is the way that I world built my world by writing through this guy's eyes. I can't read but if we're just trying to fill time.
I mean, go ahead. Whatever you want to do. That's fine.
Okay. I will go ahead and go then. Hello, dear reader. My name is Matthias Reynald Peak, and I am the story collector, a storyteller. My job is to go from place to place all around the world of Coralta and find people who have stories to tell and record them. Stories are an important part of any culture, and unfortunately, many stories from earlier ages of our world have already been lost. But the board of Republic University and I are dedicated to finding and keeping as many folktales, local histories, urban legends, myths, accounts, and cultural remembrances as we can. Though this is my current vocation, anyone who knew my situation as a child would have been greatly shocked. My father was a good man. He lived his life every day with the goal of making the world a better place for anyone who met him. His home was made at the southern edge of the Teethal Forest, and he and my mother lived on a small barley farm. They made a fair, if not excessive, living, and by all accounts, they were quite happy. One day, several years before I came along, my father was out tending the fields where he found an elf, badly beaten, passed out in one of the barley bins. He carried him into the house, and my parents began to tend his wounds. It took several days, but eventually the elf regained consciousness and began to get stronger. He told them an amazing tale of intrigue, backstabbing, and regime change. The story has been recounted in The Changing of Marcel Guard, in which he had found himself tangled. 2 weeks after Father found him, a group of soldiers looking for the elf came along and began to terrorize my parents. They burned the nearly ripe barley field and sacked the house, but they didn't find him. My parents had hidden the elf in a small hut which they maintained in the forest for hunting season. Eventually, the soldiers left and continued their search. The elf was able to ride after another week, so my father gave him a horse so that he could return to his home. My parents had always been, and still are, very frugal and very careful to save where they could, but even they could not survive without the income from the barley harvest. They began to salvage anything that they could and started to plow the burnt soil in faith that the Creator would provide for them. After a week of work, on the day when my parents were resting, an envoy for the prefect of the Stonewood arrived at the door of their farmhouse. Now, one thing which I neglected to mention earlier is that, when he was telling his tale, the elf had said that he was a steward in Marcel Keep. This, my parents found out, was a lie. He was, in fact, the royal ambassador to the House Gledowen from the elf. When he arrived back at the Woodmount, he told the story of my parents' kindness to him and suggested that a rare honor be bestowed upon them. He had convinced the elves to give my parents a plot of land in the Stonewood, a small town called Faystone, an opportunity which few men had ever been given. They quickly accepted. So that's where I grew up. 3 years later, I was born, a boy among elves. My parents taught me to do everything in my early years, and as I grew up, they taught me everything they could, and when they found something they could not teach, they found someone in Faystone, the town they settled near, who could. I vividly remember I vividly remember being taught to track the stars and travelers by Leaf Trailwalker, learning to identify edible plants by Miss Pina Loneth, and getting beaten with the staff of my swordmaster, Sir Grege Van Sant, a traveler who had been given this title by a minor noble in the Rose of Sorland. My childhood was a wonderful time. My friends and I kept ourselves occupied when not working with our parents. For those of us who were not in formal school at school. Sorry. However, as all carefree childhoods do, my childhood didn't last forever. When I was about 13, a man came into Faystone. He was a professor who had been invited to teach at the formal school for a semester. His name was Marquise Roald, and he was a truly great man. As well as being a history professor at Republic University, he had a Thera's seat at the Republic Advisory Council. He rented out the guest room at our house for the duration of his stay, and we got to know him very well. As the months rolled on, he took an interest in my education and even invited me to sit in on a few of his lectures in the school. 2 weeks before he was to return to the capital, he made an offer to my parents. I know that Matt is smart, but I don't believe that any of us have any concept of exactly how smart he actually is. Since I have been here, he has memorized everything that I have taught him, and he has corrected me on several points from the books that I gave him when I made an error. If you will allow it, I would like to take him to the university where he can learn anything that he wants. His offer was very attractive to my parents. They had always felt that I was held back by the relative lack of gold and their inability to send me to a formal school, even if they could have afforded it. I would have been unlikely to have been appreciated what was taught there. After some deliberation and no small amount of objections on my part, they decided that I would thrive at the university in a way which would be unachievable anywhere else. After the semester was over and the harvest was finished, Professor Marcus and I set from Faystone towards the Imperium Civitas. We arrived in De Civitas, specifically Lishport, after a month of travel. Professor Marcus met with a man at the dock and secured passage on a ship to the capital. The trip to the great city was very short. On the morning of the third day, I woke early and climbed into the rigging to the crow's nest. I had made fast friends with the lookout, a young man from the east named Telek, and he had joined him both of the previous days. On this morning, about an hour after sunrise, the capital appeared on the horizon. The great spires stood black against the sunrise-reddened clouds, like the swords of the knights Tarrant. You see that, Telek asked? That's the capital. I like you, kid, and I tell you to keep this safe. I tell this to you to keep you safe. Folk here all have their own ends. They might be good people, but they all want something. Be on guard. This was excellent advice. With that piece, he sent me down the rigging and called land ho. Professor Marcus and I disembarked from the ship and started walking west on Republic Street towards the university. We walked slowly, Professor Marcus pointing out the major landmarks which could be seen from the main street. He pointed out the shopping district, specifically the bookstores, the guild offices, the hotels, and the fort. That is Fort Ranison, Marcus said, pointing to the large angular building to the west, clearly visible, even through the tall buildings. The seat of the Republic's military, seeing as we are on the cusp of summer, will be mostly empty. Only a few generals will be there. We eventually arrived at the steps of the university. I distinctly remember looking up from the street in front of the university for some time. The sight of the marble towers stretching 1,500 feet in the sky filled me with wonder, as it still does. We entered through the great stonewood doors, and I got my first glimpse of the university. If you have visited the seat of learning in Coralta, then you know how imposing and beautiful it is. And if you have not, then no description anyone can give will enlighten you. Over the next 4 years, I studied under the greatest minds in Coralta. I focused on history, sociology, and natural theology, with an emphasis on how a culture's environment affects their trajectory and in the wider cultural landscape. Because of my young age, I was effectively ignored by every professor except for Professor Marcus. That was perfectly fine with me, because it allowed me to jump from subject to subject with no real limitations. By the time I was 18, I had at least visited every class offered by the university. I read over 600 books from the library and amassed a decent library of my own. I worked on the side as a clerk at Regan Bookstore. About 2 weeks after I turned 18, I was trying to figure out what my next steps were. It appeared that I had two options. Either attempt to enroll in RU for real, and hope that I'd built up enough goodwill to pay for it, or I could go back home and set myself to take over my father's farm when he passed. Both options had their respective benefits and detractions, and I was having great difficulty making up my mind. The last day of semester, the day I had to make my decision, I was given an offer. I was in my room, surrounded by my towers of unshelved books, when a knock came at the door. I opened the door and was greeted by an official messenger of the Republic University Board. I had met him before and had delivered letters to Professor Marcus on several occasions. Invited him in and to wait for the professor, but he said that the message was for me and held it out to me. I took it and shut the door as he walked away. Below is the letter I received. Mr. Peake, the board has been watching your progress with great interest ever since you arrived in the city. Now that you have finished your studies, we would like to extend an offer to you. Republic University has recently been made the beneficiary of a very large sum of resources. However, the gift has several conditions placed on it. Among those conditions was the creation of a new position on the board, and we believe that you would fit very well in the position. Please come to my office tomorrow and at the 6th hour to discuss the particulars of it. I look forward to our discussion. Dr. Ellen R. Rotunda, Chair of the Board of Republic University. The idea of being on the board at my young age was very intriguing. I went to Dr. Rotunda's office the next day and discussed the position. It was a non-voting advisory seat on the board, but the real job description was where the real interest lied. The position's official title was Archival of Cultural History. The details have already been told in this account. After very little deliberation and a quick prayer, I accepted the position. And that is what brings us here, my first assignment. I am on the way back to Stonewood to speak to my parents for the first time in nearly 5 years.
Very nice. So your character, do you always play scholarly folk? That's the other question.
Primarily, that's where I tend to lie.
Is that just because of your propensity to read, or is there something about playing that kind of character that is particularly joyful to you, even beyond, like I said, your own experience?
It's primarily my propensity to read. I enjoy reading, and so I enjoy having characters who I can more quickly jump into the mindset of. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, have I read a book on that topic? Because that's something that I ask myself quite often. But outside of that, I kind of like the scholar vibe.
Yeah.
I am not personally cut out for that, and so that is my own personal fantasy of having the fantasy scholar.
He says he's not cut out for it, but this is the guy who regularly reads like a book a day.
Yeah. Even when he's reading the Bible to like openly, he reads it in that like tone, and it's amazing.
This reminds me of the way Bilbo Baggins is described talking at his 111th birthday. Oh, boy.
Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to my 11th birthday.
Exactly. Yeah. So, any further thoughts from anybody?
I find the character intriguing. Nice setup.
Thank you.
I'm impressed with the density.
Yes. That's one thing. Yeah. Every time I've heard you read something of yours, it feels like I'm in a book that already exists. It doesn't feel like I'm listening to something someone just wrote and is getting feedback on. This feels like a finished product from 50 years ago. You know?
Thank you.
There's an anachronism to it that I really appreciate every time I hear you writing.
Thank you very, very much.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that stuck out as I was reading it, I realized that I repeat words a bit too much.
You do, which is why I was saying it sounds like a finished product from 50 years ago. It doesn't have the issue of people trying to streamline every single word out, like strip every single word out of every sentence, right? Mm-hmm. So that can be a plus, but you're gonna sound like Tolkien. You know, a little bit, right? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Oh dear, no, we wouldn't want that.
Some people don't.
No,
you know?
Yeah, it's not a finished product or anything. So as it is, it's fine. I mean, it's like it reads. It sounded all right. It drew me in, so that's good. And I'm sure you're going to refine it more because that's the way it's.
And this is a character backstory, like that. That was the original thought. but I write. This allowed me to get a grasp on his voice, which I really like. I've been able to port it over to other stories that I've written and all that.
Yeah.
Brendan, you're on mute.
Brendan, are you speaking?
No, I'm not talking to you. Sorry.
Okay.
Oh.
Gotcha.
I just solved a big problem. That's why I'm celebrating in the background silently.
Woo! Yay! Excellent. He's been working on editing stuff. Y'all heard some of that in the Facebook chat earlier.
Nice.
So that's been fun. You are actually the next one on the list. So, are you ready to do your screen share for this situation?
Sure. Give me a moment. Whoa, that's not the button I want to press. Okay. We are going to share screen. We are going to go into. We'll just do our screen. Sound may not be available when sharing a screen on a device. Ow, who cares? I don't need to hear. All right, here we go. So, welcome to DaVinci Resolve. This is my personal favorite Windows video editor because Adobe has because basically every other video editor is a subscription system. One thing that Resolve is not great with is their visual effects. The visual effects uses a node system and not the layer system. Basically, layering, most of the time when you're doing visual effects, you want to do layers. So, like, you have this bottom layer, then a layer on top, and it stacks, right? Well, I just managed, my little victory thing is, I just made a title. And so the idea, so I'm going to put it here. I'm going to shrink it, and let me come over here and change the position. I'm looking at this, I'm probably going to have to add a drop shadow behind so that you can see it better, but what this can do is you can adjust the number in the title here. So I believe this character starts with I believe she starts with 16 strength, but whatever. But there's more to it than just that. You can also modify the, can't see it. You can modify the text. So however you want to do it. We're going to stick with strength for now. And not only that, but this here, this number, you can make keyframed. So normally, it would reveal like that, right? But what we could do is say here, put that keyframe there, then go back to the beginning, change this to 0, and it looks like this. It has a little count up.
Yeah.
Which is like... So yeah, this is what I've been working on for the past, 5 hours. Maybe not 5.
But once you have it done, it's going to be usable over and over and over again.
Yeah, and that is the thing. I could totally, what I'm planning on doing eventually, hello, you are once again way too big. But that's okay, because we can, all right, wait, what is this set to? 0.4, cool. We can go to 0.4, boom, position. You have a dex of 9. I don't remember what, but whatever. We're going to call this. And then change this. We can, nope, that's the wrong one. That is one thing. I'm going to have to figure out how to color code these a bit better, but there. So I have to keyframe that there, and then keyframe this back down to 0. Sorry, you're watching me edit in real time, but welcome to my world. This is what I do.
Exactly.
We're going to offset that by that much.
This is me as well, but with Final Cut. So.
And so now.
Very cool.
There we go.
Love it.
And you can basically keep doing that for more, because I was customizing this for it. I do think I need to add a drop shadow or some kind of a color. I'm thinking the drop shadow should be good enough.
Especially if you have like a big broad drop shadow that isn't necessarily like conformed to the letters. I think just kind of a general shadow behind the whole thing would work. Even like a little cloudy vignette kind of shadow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something like that.
What if I have shadow? Nope.
I love that we can do the wordsmithing and then move on to something like this all in one kind of thing. This is just why the Brood is awesome to me. we're all jacks of all trades in some way, shape, or fashion, and those who don't understand a skill can learn from those who do and just kind of see what's available, because a lot of people don't ever look at a linear editor like this, a non-linear editor, and are like, this is you got kind of get to see the possibilities, you know.
Is there blur? Nope. That's. Oh, hold on. Let me turn this down so that I can actually like do that. Drop angle. Sure, that'll do.
Yeah, that looks good. I like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely makes it pop.
Yep.
There.
A lot better.
And then blur just a hair, and there we go. That will do.
Yes, love it. Love it, love it. Yeah. You're doing some great work there. This is for the Broodquest?
This is for anything I choose.
Well, yeah.
That's the thing. I can adjust this. I didn't build this for Broodquest specifically, but like I could theoretically use it in Broodquest very easily.
Yep.
That is so smooth.
Mm-hmm. Good work, sir.
Yeah.
Good work.
There we go.
Any other feedback or thoughts for Brendan?
I close this out so you don't look at yourselves. You have an infinite loop. Wow. I also did I didn't show it, but I did one of these radial wipes where like like you have an image and it appears as like a thing wipes in a circle like that. That was what I made earlier. I should have shown that, but I didn't. So, meh.
Okay.
But
next time.
Other thoughts from folks?
I think it looks great. It's way better than my Power Director.
Power Director is good for what it does, but yeah, it's Power Director is an Android non-linear editor.
The thing that like blows my mind is that like yeah, I'm kind of annoyed that the guys who made Resolve were a bunch of programmers rather than actual video editors, because that's the only reason why they use the node system. But like there are tutorials online, you know, and it's like, oh, this like as you go through it, it's got a learning curve, but the learning curve is sort of like, and then it's like, oh, actually, this makes a lot of sense. That's difficult.
It's consistent, in other words.
Yeah, and it's
and depending on my experience, at least, depending on the complexity of what you're trying to do, it's not that difficult to get into if you're just trying to cut.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're just trying to cut video files together, it's pretty simple. You drop the media in, and then you drop into the timeline, and that's about it.
And that remains the same. They keep the layer system for the actual editing, but it's for the visual effects that they do visual coding. And I'm just kind of like, but like, yeah, I'm just glad that I got this to work.
All right.
Oh man,
How are you feeling, isn't it?
It's so nice. YouTube tutorials. Hallelujah.
For real. Yep. So I think it's going to be me and then Kirith doesn't have anything, and then TK. So I had two things to share. They're not related, but neither of them are long. So I think I'll do the less immediately exciting one first, and then move on to the other. So I have, let's see here, been working, as far as my writing goes lately, I have been inching through my 50 or so poems that I've written in my wrestling story. It's what I rolled more recently to work on. And this is one of my oldest stories. This is one that I role-played with a friend way back in my e-fitting days. I've talked about that before, pro wrestling role-play game. And it's a romance, and it's interesting, and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to pick a poem from it real quick, and we'll go from there. Yeah, I think I'm going to do promo time. Yeah, that's a good one. Because that one I can do a lot of voice acting and stuff on. So I'll give you a little bit of backstory. There's not much before this, but a little bit of backstory for where we're coming in the story, and then kind of where it's generally going for the series. Okay. In this world, professional wrestling is real, by the way. Okay, this is like the imaginary world where all of what you see on TV is real. Okay, this is that fictional world. It's not WWE, it's its own, it's called WWL in this situation, the federation that they're in. But wrestling is still like this big, broad world where there's all these independent federations and all this other kind of stuff. So basically, it takes all the tropes of pro wrestling, but it takes them at face value, right? So some people get weirded out by that immediately. They're like, okay, you're writing a story about pro wrestling. Isn't it supposed to be fake? And it's like, I'm not writing on that meta level. I'm writing on the immediate, level of this is a fictional thing, but in this story, it's real, right? So I don't want to confuse anyone in that regard. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start this. Oh, okay. Basically, we have a rookie who shows up at his first time working at this big company, the WWL. They're a regional. They're on TV regionally. They're not a big national company, but they're a regional company. Okay. Basically, in the Southeast, the young wrestler's about 20 years old. He comes into the locker room. He gets pushed around by a few people, accidentally takes the wrong locker. You get the general idea there. And the world champion steps in and says, leave him alone. And he's tired because he just drove from Orlando, to Orlando from North Georgia, in order to make the show. Right. So he takes time and he's tired and he just chills out. I'm sorry, sequence stuff. Right before all that happened, where he got bullied, the first person he ran into was a women's wrestler who was a veteran. She's mid-30s, so she's getting toward the end of her career wrestling. And she's just come back from what will probably be her last possible injury before she has to quit. And she bumps into him, says hi. It's a very basic, like, hi, hello, what's up? Good luck, Well, she, after that interaction, gets called into the boss's office, the general manager. His name's Will Rothschild. I have him pegged kind of like Willem Dafoe. Okay, so like really slimy kind of dude. He says, you really messed up my daughter's chance at winning the championship before you went off on your injury leave. So I'm going to welcome you back tonight with a big match against the women's champion and the tag team champions. So you can have one person on your side, but it's going to be a handicap match, meaning 3 on one side, 2 on the other. But anyone who teams with you it's going to be career suicide. So good luck finding somebody, right? So she goes, and the only person that she could find actually comes to her aid when the women's champion and the tag champion start pushing her around, and that's Joshua, the young rookie character, who just woke up from a quick nap and he's feeling a lot better. Right? So that brings us into this. They've been pegged for their match. They have to do a quick promo on television. They have to get interviewed by the interviewer. Okay. And then they're going to go on. So she really hardly knows anything about him at this point. She's trying to figure out what she's going to do in this match, how she's going to survive all this nonsense. And we're going to pick it up from there. Okay. Her name is Jessica. His name is Joshua. Anyway, so here we go. Oh, also, the interviewer one time calls her Soups. That's because she's known as Supergirl Jessica Valero. That's her whole character, right? Anyway. Okay, right. So Josh, how long have you been you've been wrestling for how long? Jessica skipped steps to keep up with Josh as he briskly walked along. About 2 years now. They trained me at 18. Would you slow down for 2 seconds? Are you still hyped up on caffeine? We need to get to know one another. Develop some chemistry. Look, this stairwell will be fine to talk in. Please just sit and talk to me. Josh looked at his cell phone and then showed her the time. Wait, is this? Yeah, okay, this is it. Okay. And then showed her the time. It takes 2 seconds to get to the promo set. Please just speak your mind. Jess sat and motioned for Joshua to sit. I've only ever really tagged with one guy before. He and I weren't always best friends, and so it was a chore to hash anything out like plans or strategy. I'm used to fighting my end of the fight, and whatever will be, will be. Why did you say you'd help me out? What's in it for you? You're the first of 2 people who've been kind to me, and plus, it's the right thing to do. Well, thank you very much. That means a lot. Now, are you a power type wrestler? Tell me what you've got. I have some power. I can take a beating. I tend to be scrappy when I'm competing. I don't just find weaknesses, I open them up. I don't know if that makes sense. No, it does. You're tough. I can handle Carrie and Lil Mac, but if BJ tags in, you have to have my back. I'll start the match and do my best to last. We'll tire them out, then you'll jump in fast. Got it? Got it. Good. It's promo time. Let me say my piece to them, and then you speak your mind. And then there's a little ellipses to go to the promo set, right? Wolfman Dan was the interviewer backstage. He'd just finished interviewing Lil Mac and BJ Bass. Their opponents, Jessica and Josh, made their way through to the set, and they didn't waste any time filming. One take was all they would get. Wolfman Dan here backstage with Jessica Valero. Seems you found yourself a partner. Who is this fine fellow? Dan, I'll get to him in a second. I just want to say that to William Rothschild, that's the general manager character, I just want to say thanks to William Rothschild for screwing up my day. My first day back from injury, and he wants to retaliate against how I beat his pathetic daughter? I say great, just great. But I'll let my partner introduce himself. He's a rookie here. But Atlantics and Carey, I think you'll find this guy will bring out your fear. All eyes and cameras trained on Joshua Slater's face, and every ear was listening within that studio space. Wolfman Dan put the mic up to Josh's mouth, and what came next proved that Joshua was definitely from the South. Oh, WWL, the big dog is here, Atlantics and Carey Star. You better watch your rears, the big dog is coming and he's gonna bite. Be on your toes, gents, Supergirl and I are ready to fight. You guys might be gangsters, but you act like hogs. I may not be as big as you, but I am one big dog. Joshua howled again, and they cut the interview there. Jessica turned red in embarrassment, the cheesiness she couldn't bear. Can we do another take? Sorry, Soups, that one was live. Good promo, though. And he gave Josh a high five. That's it. Oh, you're on mute. Hold on, let me take care of that. There you go. Yeah. There you go. What were you saying, TK?
I was saying that Now, wrestling has never been my thing.
Right.
But that was actually really cute. I like that.
Right, yeah. And so, like, generally speaking, as this story goes on, it's going to turn into she sees how great of a wrestler he is. It's literally like his first match that she's ever seen him do. He's only ever wrestled in independence, and she's toward the end of her career. So she's thinking to herself, I'm going to try and manage this kid. I'm going to try and, help promote him so that he can do really well. And she's just thinking friendship and whatever else. But as she starts to learn more and more about him, he has this kind of tragic backstory. She helps him through it. Like, it's this whole thing, right? She becomes a mentor to him. And yeah, they have a big age gap, with her being, mid 30s, him being 20. But like, it's weird at first, and awkward, but that's part of how romance works. Good romances are always weird and awkward in some way at first to create tension. And so that this is what I'm talking about whenever I say pro wrestling is a perpetual Rocky story, right? At its best, it's a perpetual Rocky story that is on TV every week, and they figure out the stories as they go. There's lots of improvising and things of that nature, but in this format, I have a lot more ability to really dial in the story as opposed to it just being kind of whatever week to week. So anyway, any thoughts on that?
Who are these? I came in kind of short.
That's okay.
But what was this?
This was me. I'll just give you the very brief basics instead of going down everything. But this is my professional wrestling story. Yeah. It is a romance, and I just picked up one chapter and read it. That's all it was. So.
I got you.
So yep.
You said something about a romance, and then you gave ages of characters.
She's mid-30s, he's 20.
And that's the age gap between me and my older sister. I'm 100% weirded out.
No, it's totally weird at the beginning, but like the story.
I got you.
You believe me, that's kind of the point. I was saying, with any romance, you want some kind of weirdness at the beginning, whatever the case may be. But they're both adults. It's not like, she's actually robbing the cradle in any kind of way.
No.
But yeah, so it's a fun story to write. And like I said, I have about 50 poems. 55-ish poems now that I'm looking at it. And so like I'm working my way back through it to get myself up to speed to continue from there. Other thoughts from anybody, or do I move on to my second thing?
I really enjoyed the whole, you could tell he was from the South.
Yeah, because
I really enjoyed that.
Because he just gets really hyped up and whatever else. Like, that's a typical, like, when you think southern white trash pro wrestling, it's like, super cheesy, in your face, Hulk Hogan, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, brother, kind of thing. Yeah, exactly. And so like I that's one where you have to hear it to get it, but yeah. Brendan or Alex, any other thoughts from you guys? Or
I enjoyed it. I can't wait to hear the rest of it.
Yeah. Okay.
I was just gonna say, this is what I mean, that your poetry needs to be heard.
Yeah.
Right. Because when we read it, you can tell. Oh, yeah. It rhymes, but it doesn't like. Whereas when you hear it out loud, you have to almost listen for the rhyme.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's much smoother. So
yeah,
absolutely. I completely agree. I have tried to read through the poetry, and I've read through a bit of it, but it's a lot easier to listen to it, especially since I'm an auditory person. So
right. Abigail, were you able to hear it? I don't know if she's available at the moment or if she's kind of
on there. Yeah, I liked it.
You liked it?
It was yeah, that was fun, and I definitely could. I was already shipping them, so
That's good. That's good.
I'm gonna have to read it. I'm going to have to read it because once I heard the age gap, I'm catching weird vibes just because I have older sisters that are all that around my age.
Yeah,
I happen to know that I happen to know a couple that has a 14-year age gap at least. So
yeah.
Is he older or she older?
She's the cougar.
In the story, yeah. In my story, if that's what you're asking, she's older.
Right. No, I was at. It's okay.
You were saying Brendan, but he's got baby.
The man is older.
Either way,
guy is older, but still, let me see. I liked how it flowed. I think you repeated "speak your mind" twice.
I think so.
That was. I mean, it was both from. I think it was both from her, which is all right. But
well, I agree. I try to not do that, but I think, and that's a good point. I'm going to make a note of that and look back at it. But I think what I was trying to do was show that she's repeating herself because he's so like hyped up that she's trying to calm him down. So.
People do that. So yeah. It could work fine. It was just that was the one thing that I caught.
Since everyone's kind of all over it, I don't want to keep people here forever, and I don't want to not have TK. But I think she's Daniel. Were you planning on sharing something tonight or no?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, in that case,
been busy and doing the whole athlete and trying to do school. No,
right.
I got nothing.
Yeah, I gotcha. So TK is the only other one that I know that is sharing something. This is totally up to you guys. Oh, did Sarah pop in for a little bit? Hello,
I
Sarah.
did.
Oh, yay. Okay.
Hello.
How are you?
Hi, Sarah. You're sideways.
I'm confused. I don't know why I'm sideways.
Hey,
there we go. You got it.
I think this is the single most people I've seen on Broodcast.
I think this is the most people we've had concurrent on Broodcast.
That's exciting. Very, very cool. Well done, everyone. In that case, I was just going to say, since TK, Sarah, are you going to share something tonight or no?
I mean, I can read the next chapter of my Aemon story if you guys want to hear it.
Okay, cool. I was going to ask you guys, I have one other thing to share. It won't take but a minute. But I wanted to know, since everyone kind of liked the story, do you want to hear the very brief, short version of Joshua Slater's tragic backstory?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Let me grab my head.
Okay. Who grab what?
There.
Okay. Well, all right. So Joshua Slater, he's 20 years old, professional wrestler, rookie. Sarah, you missed me reading part of the story on this, but this is my professional wrestling rhyming story that I have like 50 poems of. I just started working on it again because my dice determined to do so. And so basically, okay, I won't go into all those details. Basically, he's 20 years old. He's a professional wrestling rookie. He's been wrestling 2 years on the independent circuit and has just been getting his break in bigger time professional wrestling. When he was a little kid, he grew up in sort of a homeschool community, but his parents were sort of, he grew up in a large family. He was kind of middle of the pack sort of situation. He was basically the main person he grew up was not his siblings as much as it was his peer group and their little homeschool group. And the first people that he really became friends with was a family called the Richards. His last name's Slater, theirs is Richards. Particularly the girl his age named Anne. They knew each other from basically since they could remember 2-3 years old. Started playing together in the local park when they had their homeschool days. Grew up together. Somewhere around 8 years old, he first proposed to her with a ring pop. He proposed to her many, many times from that point on, and they were always completely serious about it. They determined after many times their parents saying, chill out, to go ahead and just get married after they graduate high school. That's their plan. He, during this whole time, grows up, gains a good bit of weight, and gets into football. Okay. He's a lineman, etc. And he's kind of just a lazy, like he's happy with his girlfriend sort of guy. She's typical, like she is a very, very easygoing person, not your typical like manic pixie dream girl, but think that actually grounded, like actually like really, really calm and relaxed about everything, and loves her goofy, silly, big chunk of a boyfriend, right? And so basically they grew up together, he and Anne, and they get to high school, and it's homecoming for football in his senior year, and he they're blowing out the other team so badly because, you know, homecoming and everything, that he decides that he wants to sit with her. He doesn't want to play. He's too tired, doesn't want to play, and yells at the ref and gets kicked out, specifically to go sit with her. The people who know them in the crowd cheer. Right? Okay. When he does this. So they go, they relax, they have a good time. Then after the game's over and everyone has fun and whatever else, she says, all right, you want it's a really nice night, maybe we should walk back to our you could walk me back to my house. And he says, no, I'm too tired. Let's drive a car. Besides, we'll have to pick up the car later anyway. And they are in a car accident. Anne dies, and he gets a traumatic brain injury. One of his favorite things growing up was professional wrestling, but he never thought he was any good to athletically enough to do that sort of a thing. Anne always told him, yes, you are. Yes, you are. And he loved watching it. Basically fell into a depression for about a half a year. His parents end up kicking him out because he's literally just belligerent with them. And they don't realize it's because of the TBI. It's undiagnosed, all kinds of other stuff. And he ends up going and getting trained for professional wrestling. Yes, with traumatic brain injury. So there's kind of a ticking time bomb a little bit with that. But that's not revealed till much, much later. Point being that he goes out on his own, lives the van life, gets himself a van, does the thing, finds a mentor, gets into North Georgia Pro Wrestling, NGPW, and basically becomes one of the greatest NGPW has ever seen in an extremely quick manner, and gets signed by WWL by a talent scout. And now he's going to the big regional television show, weekly television show. And they travel more than regionally, but they are only shown regionally on television. If that gives you an idea of how big they are. They're not like one of these big national things, but they're a step above, So yeah. Anyway, that's his tragic backstory. So that's the connection to all this.
This is going to be really cool to read whenever it's all done.
I see a huge smile on your face. That's what I was waiting for, you to say something.
All I can think of was, everyone died. The end.
There you go.
Okay, this is totally an Up type of thing.
Absolutely.
Like the Disney Pixar, like, okay, you're rooting for them, and she's dead.
This predates Up, by the way. I started writing this story with my friend role-playing back in 2006 and 2007. So, yeah. But
I don't have any idea when Up came out.
2009, I believe.
Up came out, I think it was actually 2011. I'll check it out.
Might have been a little later, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it was around 10 whenever it came out. So I vaguely remember, I remember watching it for the first time.
2009.
2009? I knew it. Haha. Anyway. Okay. Let me see here. All right. I'm going to share my screen for my second thing. This is going to take less amount of time. Let's see here. Go live. It's going to say something weird about these Mario Hot Wheel toys are violent, but that's just because I have a tab open with that video. You should be able to see my screen. Click the watch stream or whatever if you need to do that. I'm going to go here for this tab. It's loading. Taxing my computer. Let me get to So Casey and I've briefly mentioned this a few times, have had the idea and the dream to have a fairy tale-ish bed and breakfast for the longest time. And we are creating a semi-perpetual crowdfunding situation for the sake of completing our goal. This isn't launched in any way yet. I might be doing videos on this, but I'm actually writing out all the steps that need to happen and essentially putting it forward as a crowdfunding sort of a thing. Why is it not loading? There will be a better way to do this. If this will not load. Yeah, Firefox is saying not enough RAM, basically. So I'm going to have to close that. Oh, wait, no, there it goes. Do you guys see it? The card came up. The kind of gray thing in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So these are still loading. I have... I was just going to read the preamble that I wrote for this and show some of the art that it went away. Let me do it this way. I, instead of that, am going to close the screen share, and I am just going to post these pictures to the Green Dragon Tap Room text channel for anyone who wants to see. Let me download these right quick and get them sent. Yeah, because it's just my computer just doesn't have enough RAM to do all this at once. Come on. All right, let me download that one. I should have had this going. I apologize. Give me just a moment. It's going to be easier for me to put it in the Facebook chat. I know not everyone's going to be able to see it really quickly doing it that way, but I'm going to probably need to. Give me just one moment to do that. I am going to post these pictures and describe what they are as we go. Okay. This is the ultimate goal. This is Rindon Hall. Let me put this here. That is the exterior. Rindon Hall, named after Peter's sword and the Chronicles of Narnia, will be a concert venue, and it's going to have an interior. Let me find the image. Oh, my iPad. That's probably going to be the best way to do it. Y'all saw that. Let me do that real quick. I am so sorry about this. This was not expected. I thought I would be able to do the screen share and just show really easily. Finish this. Okay. I can send these to the Facebook chat or Discord here. I'll probably do both. Let me... The Brood. All right. You saw Rindon Hall. The exterior. The interior will look something like the following. There it is. All right. This is an idea. If you've ever been to Disney World, you've seen some of their rides, the dark rides and other things have a starry ceiling made from fiber optics and other sorts of things. And so that gives you an idea of what that would be. There, the thing in the middle is a dance floor with nice AstroTurf called Dancing Lawn. Essentially, this concert hall can be used for venue space for weddings as well, other sorts of, multi-purpose ballroom sort of situations. And the things on the side, even though they're hard to tell unless you're really looking closely, will be, and I know it's kind of vague because of the art style, but it's family style seating, so long tables and that sort of a deal. So this would be kind of what that would look like. A lot of that is coming similar to the beer garden in Epcot, if you've ever been to the Germany pavilion in that situation. So that's what Rindon Hall would be. That's the ultimate. I'm kind of going backwards here as I do this. But then we have the escape house, specifically named for Tolkien's ideas of escapism proper, as opposed to, you know, whatever other people think of that sort of thing. That is a 12-bedroom mini hotel bed and breakfast kind of situation. Interior picture, there we go. Give you an idea of what it would look like. And then we have the main actual house situation. Here is an exterior picture of that and the fire pit. This would be our house. It would be the song house. And we could be able to host people there. That's actually the first thing beyond land and an RV. Here's another picture of an idea of what that would be like. Beyond that, obviously, the first phase is land and RV. And I just did a very basic land and RV kind of a picture. Looks like something you would see in Georgia. So we want to do a Class C. That's a whole other thing. But basically what all of this generationally would come to is fairly close to, let me look at my numbers here. Obviously it's broken up into 4 phases like I kind of outlined. They are together around 25 million. Oh. So yeah, huge, ridiculous, but to do it right, that's what we're looking at ultimately. Now, when it comes to the beginning phase is the first phase is 65,000. So land around 50,000 and about 15,000 for an RV. Like that will actually last us a while, right? Something that a Class C specifically for the case of maintenance and not something that has a specific engine. Class C's are the ones that have like a front end that is a common like Ford F450 kind of vehicle or whatever that can have easy maintenance. You were going to say something, TK, or no?
No, I was just letting you know that I was paying attention.
You were nodding along. Okay. So this is just I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm just going to read the preamble here. Every man has dreams, a dream job, a dream family, a dream life, but a dream home is something that is one of the most universal things imaginable, and it's one of the things that we all strive for, man, woman, and child. A place where we can feel safe and secure, but even more so, a place where we can thrive spiritually, industrially, and carry out the dominion mandate God has given us. A place where generations can thrive and spill out into their surrounding community, building up the kingdom of God one brick at a time. This is my attempt to relay that vision to you, dear reader/listener, a grand vision for what could be this branch of the Ling family that God has given me, and what I believe we will receive and or achieve through sheer stubborn delusional willpower, and hard work, yes, but more importantly, God's overflowing and hilarious grace. This is my Project Abraham. This is my vision for the Starry Hearth. The Starry Hearth will be a bed and breakfast style destination for the whole family for a reasonable cost. Families all over the world can come and enjoy a restful and fun fairy tale experience in the backwoods of Southern American forestry. They will be hosted by an actual on-site family, the Lings, and their local knights and dames who will keep things running smoothly. Artists, storytellers, and bards from all over the U.S. will come and share their talents with our guests during year-round events, many of which will be streamed for free online as promotion to come out and enjoy this one-of-a-kind retreat campus. With recreational playgrounds and ball fields for the daytime, along with plenty of fire pits and fireplaces where tale-tellers can weave their magic at night. There's always some sort of wondrous beauty and life-sparking imaginative adventure just around the corner. We also plan to weave in all sorts of details and references to some of the most famous stories in all of fairy book literature. And then I transition into phase 1. So, yeah. And I make it clear that this is a generational project. I in no way, God could totally get it to us some way, somehow. But I feel like just putting out the vision and showing my credentials from being, you know, a DJ and all the stuff that I grew up with, my specific talents and things that I do regularly, you know, and the way I'm scraping and my vision for the whole thing. I feel like putting that out there and saying like, I have a vision for a place that is essentially the theme park version of sitting on your dad's lap and him reading you Narnia. That's the idea. And so I feel like somebody's going to get that at some point, and I'm going to try and work with my children to, you know, continue it on past me if need be. So that's, I feel like writing it out clearly and all that stuff is really important. So if you guys have anything cool, otherwise we can move on to TK.
Well, doesn't Sarah technically
Sarah,
come first?
excuse me, Sarah. Yeah, are you okay with that, TK? You were next, so, and you've been waiting a while.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
What I was gonna say was, I don't mean to sound like I don't mean anything by this, but that sounds a lot better than the Ark Encounter, I gotta tell you that.
That's the highest compliment I could ever have. Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you, TK. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So
when you were describing it, it reminded me of two separate ideas that I have had and played with over the years, neither of which I see happening in any near future. But I've played with the idea of a bed and breakfast where each room has a theme. Like make this one cowboy themed and make this one superheroes themed.
that's my idea for the escape house for sure. But I mean, that's details, you know. So yeah, but yeah.
My mind likes playing with details.
Yeah.
And when I was, I don't know, a tween, I think, maybe in my early teens, I created this whole idea with like maps and layouts and all the things of basically a history amusement park. Like you get to walk through time and there's different areas that are different eras. And that kind of reminded me of that a little bit too, because yeah,
similar.
But it would also take millions upon millions of dollars.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the phases are broken down financially, basically like just bottom line for each phase, the 4 phases. The first one's 65,000, the second one is 352,500. And that's for our cottage and the fire pit situation where we can do storytelling and hosting. The escape house is looking around 8 million, and Rindon Hall is looking at 15 million. So that's just rough estimates, obviously, and things can change, you know, up or down. So
yeah, it makes sense to have it all written out so you have a good plan of where to go.
Right. Yep. So
give me like 4 years and I should be able to help.
What'd you say, Daniel?
Give me like 4 years and let me get into my like dream career.
There you go.
And I'll help.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Alex, I think this is the most we've had now. Alex.
Yes, it definitely is.
Wow.
To jump off of what TK was saying, whenever Ark Encounter was being built, the predominant thought that I had was, this is important. Okay, so this is an important thing to have happen. Whenever I'm hearing you pitch this is a thing that I desperately want to have in the world.
Yeah.
Those are the two. Not to say that this isn't important or that wasn't a thing that I wanted to have in the world.
Right.
But those were the two primary things. That was important. This is a thing that I really want to exist for the sake of it, because this is a good thing.
Right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I love the concept.
Imagine what BroodCons can be like if we get this off the map before we die.
But the one question I have is, will there be space for a library or a bookstore? Because there needs to be, obviously.
There'll definitely be my own private study. I was thinking in the escape house specifically that there would be on the lower level lobby, I describe kind of as a community space It's less of a hotel lobby and more of a like there's a kitchen that it doesn't have walls, so that it's part of the open floor plan, so you can go and cook. Right, you have somewhat of a library area, you have seating areas to chill and relax, and each step has a very specific place for storytelling and or music. Rindon Hall, you can't see it as well, but Rindon Hall, I'm imagining this massive stone fireplace as the stage. So the stoop for the fireplace is actually kicked out extra far so that it's actually a full stone stage, right? And then in the escape house, you have a smaller version of that. And then the fire pit around our cottage, the songhouse, would be like where the storytelling would happen there. So like slash, music and whatever concert performance kind of stuff. And so the idea is in any given day, you could have concerts going on at all three if you really wanted to. You know what I'm saying? Like you could really have just incredible amounts of stuff, different times, different places, different whatever. And so yeah, it's the library would be integral to the lobby floor of the escape house for me. And it would be a place where people could come out of their rooms and just sit, like it's a little bookstore library sort of thing, and just see all these amazing books and get some coffee or tea and chill. So yeah.
Between the description.
Do what?
Yeah.
You should have an introvert room where people can just go and be quiet, and it's just like no talking or something.
Yeah, well, that's your room, right? That's the one that you get in the escape house.
It needs something else too, like little nooks.
So
I don't know. I'm not
cozy.
an introvert, but consult your local introvert.
Yeah. Because we're introverts here, so.
Well, yeah.
Between the picture that you posted and the description that you gave, I'm imagining a slightly more erudite prancing pony from the Lord of the Rings movies.
for the escape house?
Yeah, for the lobby.
Whenever you say escape house, I'm thinking of like an escape room where we're like locking people inside.
And well, it's a play on words, but the point of using the word escape in this manner is the way Tolkien used it, right? He talked about escapism. Basically, like the only people who have a problem with escape are jailers. Escape is a good thing, right?
Gotcha.
And so that's why it's called the escape house. So yes,
I figured that's along the lines of what you were doing, but every time I'm hearing escape house, I'm thinking escape room. And
the songhouse is
we should have an escape room,
right? The songhouse is our house, and that essentially will be like VIP people come and enjoy the whole being actually hosted by us. It's going to be a 4-bedroom cottage, something very simple. And that's going to be super special, but that's going to be this phase 2. That's going to, the RV in the land, getting all the infrastructure in, and then it's building our house. That's the first thing. But our house is going to continue to be super important through the whole process. The songhouse. So it goes songhouse.
Yeah, kind of like the heart of the project.
Right. So it goes songhouse, escape house, and then Rindon Hall. So yeah, I always feel really like I'm having a really hard time describing Rindon Hall in particular. But if you've ever been to anywhere that was just like had like magical twinkling lights indoors and it felt like a forest, you know what I'm talking about. That's exactly the kind of vibe I'm going for. So, yeah.
Ooh, you could put like an earthquake simulator in there, so if it was ever pertinent, you could have like some VFX.
There's an idea.
Alternatively, very, very, very large subwoofer.
Oh yeah, no, it's gonna have a great sound system. Yeah, it's me and my AV stuff. It's gonna have state of the art for the concerts and things. People are gonna be able to have their sound people and their lights people and do all the things. But my hope is that it will all the technology will be stashed away in a way where it feels like you're still outside in like this amazing fantasy world, So
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on to Sarah, I suppose, if you're going to read your Lord of the Rings fun times. I'm excited about that. I
need to get going, I think.
Okay.
So...
Well, bye, Abigail. We appreciate you being here.
It was fun seeing you all again, mostly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fun hearing from
you.
you.
I would have been here sooner. I just fell asleep, but is what it is.
Well, that's not funny. All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.
Where did we finish last time? I think we did chapter 3.
I think
she got Aldor's dagger.
The thing I remember was Worm Time.
Yeah, okay.
That was the last thing. Yeah. The last thing was getting Aldor's dagger.
Okay, thank you. So we're up to chapter 4, like I thought. Okay, so this is chapter 4 of The White Lady of Rohan. A year later, very little had changed, though Aldor and Éowyn had continued to train and to grow closer. Aldor had proven himself in battle many times over, and was quickly moving up the ranks of Theodred's Eored. He was good friends with both Theodred and Éomer now, and Éowyn nearly always felt safe when they were in the city, as one of the three was always sure to be nearby. When they were gone, however, Grima was still slinking towards her too often to whisper chilling words of darkness and despair. She would watch her men ride off, standing on the parapet of the hall, replaying their words over and over to give her strength. Twice a day she rode out for exercise and to practice with her weapons. Every evening she watched the horizon from the walls, bolstering her courage with the thought of theirs. One day, while waiting for Aldor to join her in the dell they often practiced in, Éowyn was practicing with her sword, as she was accustomed to. After a year of training, her movements were purposeful, powerful, and yet graceful. She did not stop practicing when she heard hoofbeats, recognizing them as belonging to Aldor's horse, Gwynfola. She permitted herself a smile and refocused on her routine. A few more minutes went by before she realized that Aldor should have hailed her by now. She looked up to see him sitting on the grass close at hand, watching her with an air of peaceful contentment. "Whatever are you doing?" Éowyn asked, slightly annoyed and yet flattered. "Just watching," Aldor replied with a lazy grin. "Why don't you make yourself useful and teach me something?" Éowyn retorted, unable to keep a teasing tone out of her voice or the blush off her face. "Nay, I've a better idea," he said, rising to his feet. "Put your sword away and come here." Mystified, Éowyn did as he asked, walking to her mare and placing her sword in its hidden sheath in her saddle. "Put the reins over her head," Aldor added. Éowyn did and walked over to him. Aldor mounted his horse. "Do you trust me?" He had a mischievous glint in his eye. "Of course." He held out his hand, kicking his foot out of the near stirrup. "Then ride with me." Éowyn looked back at her horse, knowing full well Aldor wanted her to ride double. "You whistle, she'll follow," Aldor reminded Éowyn, "and Gwynfola is easily strong enough for both of us, since I don't have my armor or pack." Shrugging, Éowyn threw her cares to the wind and clasped his hand, mounting his horse behind him. "Follow," she told her mare. "I haven't ridden like this since I was a small child," she added toward Aldor's back, carefully keeping a few inches between them. He turned and grinned slightly in answer, then clicked to his horse. They began to move, faster and faster. Éowyn was soon having trouble, not with keeping her seat, she was far too experienced a rider for that, but with not touching Aldor. Then, when they were nearly at full gallop, she found her wrists clasped gently and her arms pulled around his waist. Giving in, she leaned against him, suddenly happier than she had felt for ages, it seemed. She relaxed against his back, a small portion of her mind registering surprise at the realization that she hadn't felt relaxed as far back as she could remember. If she could have seen Aldor's face, she would have noticed his elation, his pride and excitement. She would not have been able to identify another emotion she would have seen there, that of a fierce love. The ride was timeless, stretching out into a glorious eternity, yet ending too soon. For eventually they began to slow, and finally they stopped. Eowyn looked up. Aside from the two horses and themselves, there was nothing in sight but grass. "What are we doing here?" she asked. "Nothing," Aldor said. Eowyn felt his shoulders rise and fall in a shrug, but he turned his head to grin at her. She smiled back without reserve. "Whatever you say, Aldor," she murmured. "You know what I say?" he asked. He disengaged her arms, swung down from Wingfola, and looked up into her eyes. "I say I love you." "You do?" Eowyn was surprised. No one had said that to her before except her mother, long ago. "I do." Suddenly Aldor's voice changed from confident to almost pleading. "Do you love me?" I don't know," she answered slowly. "I don't even think I know how to love. I'm not even sure I know what love is." Aldor nodded thoughtfully. "Love is when you miss someone you left only seconds ago. Love is being worried about someone. Love is about always wanting to be with someone, to help them, to put them first all of the time. Love makes you want to hold a person in your arms. Love makes you want to smile, to laugh at nothing, to sing. It makes you feel like you could do anything." Eowyn nodded slowly. "Well, you make me smile and laugh and feel like singing. I do miss you when you're not around. It's like a gaping hole is missing from my core. You make me feel happier and safer than I felt since I was a girl. I don't think I've ever been more comfortable than during this ride." With every word, Aldor's smile brightened until he was... With every word, Aldor's face brightened until he was smiling infectiously, and she had to smile back. He put his hand out and she dismounted and took it. "So I guess I must love you," Eowyn finished. Wordlessly, Aldor pulled her into a hug. She wrapped her arms around him in return and wondered at how right it felt. He was the taller, and she could just see over his shoulder. She closed her eyes and felt joy wash over her as she saw nothing but Aldor, felt nothing but him, smelled nothing but him, heard nothing but his breathing. And she felt that it was the most wonderful thing that had ever happened to her. She was sure he could hear her heart pounding, but she did not mind. After a time, she loosened her grasp and stood back and looked up at him. He smiled delightedly down at her, then bent slightly and kissed her. It was amazing and terrifying, tumultuous and peaceful, forceful and gentle all at once. Then it was over, and he was grinning down at her again. "Ever done that before?" he asked. Eowyn ducked her flaming face, shaking her head, and allowed him to pull her back into a hug. "Shall we do it again sometime?" he whispered near her ear. She nodded slowly, keeping her face buried in his shoulder, and smiled contentedly as he laughed in delight. And that's the end of that chapter.
Round of applause. Round of applause.
A bit shorter than previous, I noticed.
Yeah, a lot more went into it.
Yeah, there's a lot of I'm sure there was a lot of keeping him masculine for you as best as you could. I think
I loved it. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was sweet. I think I'm more interested in who he is now. Like, I'm more interested in knowing why he's so free with his words. I don't think that it was unrealistic in any way, because I know guys like this. I may or may not be one of them, but there are guys who are really hard, have a really hard time saying anything like what this guy's doing. And then there are guys who kind of like goofy, jovially golden retriever their way through the whole thing. and that's kind of what I felt from the guy. But that makes me go, okay, interesting golden retriever guy. He's got to have an interesting life in Rohan, of all places.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, makes me think more about him deeper. Who is this guy? Where's he come from? What's his deal? It's interesting. So that's the thing I took away from it most. Like, it's not unrealistic, but it's making me ask more questions. So there you go.
I'm now trying to be quiet because the baby is asleep. But first of all, still a better love story than Twilight.
There you go.
To use an age-old meme.
Thanks.
But really, sort of following off of what Joshua said, my instinct wasn't necessarily that. It's like, yeah, okay, some people can be like that. But for me, it's more, I'm waiting for either, like, one of two things has to happen. Either he's going to die, or he's going to betray her and then die. And, yeah, I'm waiting for, I'm not saying I'm waiting for this to end up where he is just a worse Grima, whereas Grima is openly creepy. This guy is like a a Venus flytrap, where it's enticing. But yeah, it's, I mean, I expect nothing less from an editor, but again, your word choice, your descriptions, your actual craft of writing is extremely good. So unlike me, who starts the same, like, who will start 5 sentences in a row with the same word, you are very good with your sentence, like the difference in sentence length. You're applying what description is needed and leaving out things and letting the reader imagine it. Yeah, you're insanely good at what you do.
Thank you.
The couple lines that specifically stood out to me were she was strengthened by the thought of their strength. That was a really good line. And her flaming face is also very good.
Thank you.
Further thoughts,
Yeah,
anyone? Oh, okay, go ahead, Sarah.
No, I was just gonna say that I had fun with this.
You can tell. You can tell.
Yeah, no, sounds like you did. Sounds like you did.
Alrighty. Well, TK, you are next. You will want to unmute when you get the chance. There you go.
Yeah, sorry, I keep hitting the wrong button.
It's all good.
So, can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because all the fans. So, I wanted to, before I did anything, I wanted to explain some backstory.
You're back to mute. Okay, there you go.
Damn it. So, because people had a lot of questions about the setting and whatnot. So my book series is basically a portal fantasy wherein a magical world and the somewhat contemporary human world exist in the same time continuum. Except the fantasy world is obviously slightly more medieval and stuff like that. The parts of the human world are roughly the late 90s to early 2000s, before 9/11, but we have cell phones. I am likely never to address 9/11 at all. So I need to be careful of anachronism, by the way. So because the human world exists concurrently, there are going to be some references to cell phones and other modern technologies. And the fairy characters the fantasy characters that live in the human world are living underground in underground cities. The one specifically I deal with is the city of Evermore. This city is guarded and captained by a good ogre who is married to a human woman, and they have a son. The son is named Boris, and he is just turned about 20 or 21 as this book begins. He has employment as a lumberjack, mostly delivering wood to various restaurants that required for wood-fired stoves like pizzerias. The other person that will appear in this scene, since I have been reading you this particular section, is a human girl who was raised among elves as an orphan. Her name is Princess Finola. Boris calls her Nola for short. Alright, so last time we left Boris and Nola climbing through the window into Baba Yaga's hut, as they are after a human girl who is being currently held captive by Baba Yaga and her assistant Kashe the Deathless. Confident that they were alone, Boris and Nola relaxed a little while the half-ogre tracked Sarah's scent. Boris pointed to a door. It looked like another storeroom. He put his knife away and put his hand on the lock, before thinking better. He gestured to Nola to take his place so he could be the first to face whatever was beyond. Nola put her hand on the lock and raised the other, holding up 3 fingers. She lowered them, counting 3, 2, 1. She unlocked the door and threw it open. Boris leaped into the room, axe drawn. The wraiths hissed and charged him. Nola was behind him and pulled a glowing crystal from her tunic. She dove fearlessly into the creatures, chanting, not caring if all the hordes of all the wizards were upon them. Now, this is meant to be sung to the tune of Savage Daughter. I don't know if anybody's ever heard that song. It's like a folk song, but it's way too pagan for me, but I love the tune. I will not attempt to sing. I am the child of man and fairy. The shadows all fear me even when I'm alone. In the moonlight I stand, I run in the streets, I dance in the forest, for it is my home. Boris spotted the loom and made his way toward it. I see her, she's tied down to that loom. I'll keep him off you. Nola continued chanting. I am the child of man and fairy. I never will bow to the darkness and cold. I am the child of man and fairy. I'll dance and sing in the face of my foes. Boris reached the loom, calling, Sarah! Lady Sarah, are you okay? She didn't answer. Boris cursed between his teeth. Nola chased the last of the wraiths away with her crystal. I think she's been poisoned. I need to get some Elysium in her, like now. Boris came closer. There was yarn all tangled in her hair and around her arms and legs and throat. He checked for a pulse in her neck. She's alive. This yarn didn't help. He drew his knife and cut the yarn from Sarah's throat. As he did, there came a scream from somewhere. Nola, tell me that was you. The loom quivered. See? Lie to me, I said, complained Boris. The loom stretched out. Legs appeared from under the loom, made of wood. It rose up like a spider on 8 of these legs. The front of the loom shifted, revealing a set of glass eyes and wooden fangs. I had to find the one Decepticon, Boris growled. He attacked the creature's leg with his axe, chopping the tip off of one. The thing shrieked and shot yarn at him. Boris managed to dodge, landing by Nola. The monster cowered in the light of Nola's crystal, backing against the wall of its lair. She pulled a small knife from her belt and put it between her teeth. Boris attacked the creature's other front leg, this time snapping it off at the first joint. Don't like that, do ya, Blinky? The creature managed to grab Boris with the yarn, dragging him toward it. Nola grabbed the strands and slashed with her knife. Boris dropped to the floor, free from the thing's grasp. It shrieked in pain. It's the yarn! The yarn hurts if you cut it! Nola exclaimed. Keep it distracted! Boris climbed to his feet. What are you? Trust me! Boris heard her run to the back of the room, then heard her jump. She landed on the spider's leg and scrambled up to the warp and weft on his back, her knife in her teeth. "Now I get it," he yelled. He attacked the monster's leg, chopping it off close to the body. The thing roared in pain, falling close to Boris, yarn expelling loosely from its body. Boris chopped its eyes out and continued chopping until it lay its splinters on the ground. He stowed his axe as Nola rose from the wreckage, supporting Sarah's body. "She's alive but really cold," she reported, handing her to Boris. Wraiths gathered again, seemingly released from the beast's body. Nola again pulled out her crystal, which burned brighter than ever. Boris pulled a flask of Elysium extract from his belt, where it hung next to his cell phone, and poured a few drops into Sarah's mouth and on the ligature marks in her neck. She muttered. "Fingal?" "Sorry, milady, it's just me." "You did hear me." "Yeah, now we're getting you out of here." "Torben, we need to go," said Nola. "Who's that?" Sarah questioned. "Princess Nola of the Wild Hunt. She's right, we gotta go." Boris climbed to his feet and made for the door. The splinters on the floor rattled. He looked over his shoulder. The wood was levitating. "Look out!" he gasped, grabbing Nola and pulling her close to him to shield both girls. The splinters hit his back, some sticking out grotesquely. He groaned and grunted in pain. "Torben!" cried Nola. I'm okay. They're not deep. My skin's too thick." They made it out the door, Nola shutting it tight behind him. "Son of a gun, these hurt," Boris hissed. "How do you feel, Sarah?" "My arms and legs are like pins and needles, but other than that, I'm okay." Nola held her crystal between her teeth and pulled out some of the biggest splinters from his back. "Ouch! Nola, shouldn't we wait until... "Shut up, you big baby," Nola scolded around the crystal. "Better than you getting blood poisoning." I'll stop there. Thank you.
The Decepticon spinning wheel spider was not a thing that I realized that I needed, but I definitely did. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I did not see the loom becoming alive. That was not something I saw coming.
It was brilliant.
Fantastic.
Thank you. I think that was Ian's idea.
This does not surprise me. No, like literally, TK, when this section is posted, I'm not really sure how it's posted because I never watch them because I'm here, so I see them. If you can see people's faces on the posted bit, watch mine and get all my reactions because I had them.
Oh boy, yeah. I just love Boris. The more I hear about him, the more I'm just like, this curmudgeonly little dude is just. Yeah, I know he's not little, but you know what I mean. Like he has a little personality in a sense, like just curmudgeon. He reminds me of like. And I might be completely off here, so just forgive me if I say this, but like he reminds me of an Ed Asner kind of character who's like young.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah. I know that's kind of out of left field, but yeah, go ahead, Brendan.
Is reacting in much the same way that anybody who has been on too many adventures would react. Oh my gosh, we have to do this again. Oh, come on, I just dealt with this last week. Oh, for Pete's sake, can none of you do this correctly? Why do I have to do all the work? And it's great.
He's a level 20 adventurer who's just fed up. He knows what he has to do, but he doesn't enjoy it that much anymore.
Oh, so much fun. So much fun.
Yeah. You say it's a portal world, and I can't remember if you mentioned this last time, but like, is it connected to the real world? And if so, is that why it's called a Decepticon? Because even though like mimics are what like fantasy people would call it, but because it's connected to the real world, and in the real world there's Transformers somewhere in some capacity, they're called Decepticons.
Yes.
Is that like
Boris?
that is?
Boris lives in the human world, so he's familiar with TV and movies and stuff like that. His mother, carefully curates, but one of the things I have in my head that I haven't actually found a place for is that he loves Transformers.
So, is there going to be some point when they kick in the door and they can't find the person, and he goes, "I swear, if the princess is in another castle, I'm going to flip"? Because that would sound so much like,
I like that. That's gonna stay in the filing system.
Just all kinds of references to all sorts of pop culture, and you can get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Dresden Files, but different.
It gives me the feel of a kind of a more lighthearted Artemis Fowl or Spiderwick Chronicles.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing I'm going for.
Congratulations, you succeeded.
Well, thank you.
Love it. Well, we're about the time where I'm going to wrap for the podcast portion. Anyone can chill and hang out, of course, as usual. Everybody, be your family's bard. Do not turn to the right or to the left, and the Lord will be with you wherever you go. We'll see you next time on the Broodcast.
This is the Broodcast on Poets at War, Inkling-style Discord chat, last Friday of every month. To join, go to joshuadavidling.com and click the Discord link in the right-hand sidebar.